moving on to the next segment of today's show. Let's get into it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the Superdome, play the Saints for the third time this season, and for the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, the third time is the charm as they end up getting the win, and they will be taking on the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game. And Andrew, I'll give the mic to you. Tom Brady, at the age of 43, is just doing it, and somehow, someway, the Buccaneers are in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think, that defense just was really all over. They would put pressure constantly against Drew Brees in that game, and
the turnovers were the main difference.
The turnovers, and the secondary is playing really good yesterday. So a few days ago, but yeah, dude, I think that Bucs defense is going to be really freaking nasty against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they have a front four that could. Todd Bowles might not be the best head coach, but he can call.
He has his moments. He has his moments. That's how I would describe it. But dude, before we get into the Packers, let's get into the Saints game, dude. I want to talk about a couple things. Number one, it is crazy that Tom Brady is doing this at this age, and I understand. Tom Brady was not the main reason why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won this game. I agree. I think their defense and their running game was the main reason why they won. Their offensive line as well. But at the same time, when I look at Tom Brady in this game, you could clearly tell that even though he wasn't at his best, he wasn't the main reason why the Buccaneers won, he was significantly better than Drew Brees. Tom Brady at least could throw the ball 20 yards downfield. And I'll tell you what, I don't even think the Buccaneers receivers played well in this game either. If you would have told us before the game that Gronk and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and AB would only combine for 6 catches, you would have thought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were losing this game, right?
Yeah, they had some stars. Some smaller guys on the wide receivers that made big plays. And,
Tyler Johnson, what a catch!
Yeah, really. And who's that slot guy?
Scotty Miller.
Scotty Miller, man, he broke the ankles out.
A third down, right? Yeah.
Yeah, huge third down, and yeah, man. It's sad to say, but Tom Brady's shown that he can still play at that level, and Drew Brees can't. And it's sad, but one more thing about Brady, it's remarkable. Another thing I want to say is just he played really good with that that offensive line, that front five really did a good job against the Saints 4-man pass rush. And he was, Brady looks vintage. He can make the plays if he had to. Had a few quarterback sneaks, vintage Brady.
The most efficient play in football.
Yes, and he's the best.
More teams should take notes.
Yeah, I think Andy Reid should take a note about that on a 4th and short, but yeah.
Hey, Andy Reid doesn't care.
Yeah, you got Tyreek Hill, who cares? Chad Henne, man, who cares,
Anything's possible, as Patrick Mahomes would say.
Exactly, yeah. But, yeah, man, and I also just want to, see your opinion on Drew Brees, it's sad that it happened, and, what do you think? How would you think about his game?
Andrew, it's so funny, man. I remember during this coronavirus pandemic, obviously we've been home for a while, and it's very easy to point to specific moments during this whole quarantine because nothing has really happened, notably, and one of the big moments was right during that pandemic when Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had you on this show, dude, and we were talking about it, man. Tom Brady to the Buccaneers. I really liked it at the time, dude. I said this Tampa Bay Buccaneer defense was good, and if you took the ball out of Jameis Winston's hands and had a quarterback that wasn't turning the ball over each and every game, this defense would be good enough to at least get you to the playoffs. And when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady and surrounded him with the weapons that Tampa Bay did and a head coach in Bruce Arians, I thought this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team was going to be really good. And I remember telling you many times throughout the summer, bro, I'm not a believer in the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees is washed. I predicted the Saints to miss the playoffs, and ultimately they were good. Sean Payton is a very good head coach. I still think he's overrated in big games, but he wasn't the reason why the Saints lost this game. I'll admit that. He had his team ready to play in this game. But at the same time, when you look at this game and everything that went on, as much as it pains me to say it, Drew Brees was the real reason why the Saints lost. He didn't have the ability to get the ball downfield. And in terms of the New Orleans Saints, their defense is so good, man. We were talking about it right before we started this show. Hendrickson, Lattimore really shut down Mike Evans for the most part. But Tom Brady made enough plays and didn't turn the ball over, unlike Drew Brees. I think the turning point of the game for me was the Jared Cook fumble, and ultimately Tampa Bay was able, at that point they were down 7, and they tied the game right after that, and finally that's when momentum started to swing towards Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady was just able to make enough big plays late.
Yeah, Zach, and one more thing, I think that the Saints played, they played their A game in the first half, and the second half, Drew Brees, his arm just caught up to him because, you can't push the ball down the field. Cornerbacks, safeties are going to play up top more, take more risks, and that led to some interceptions. And, even on that trick play, man, Jameis Winston had to throw that deep.
Dude, let me ask you something. I don't know about you. I've never played football. I've never been on a sideline. I'll totally admit that. But, when Jameis was in the game, I even knew the deep ball was coming. How was Traquan Smith that wide open?
Yeah,
that was vintage Todd Bowles.
Yeah, for real, man. I think, we saw that, Sean Payton copied that play from the Bears last week, and I just think,
and this time it actually worked.
Yeah, I think the Bucs secondary just isn't as, matured, so, they make those mistakes, and hopefully it doesn't come to bite them back in the ass next week, because I know LaFleur would have some saying, interesting game plan and a few trick plays, but, I think Drew Brees really, sadly, seeing him walk off the field probably for the last time, it's just... it's sad to see that he didn't play in this last game like this.
Dude, he's had a very up and down career, and with that being said, he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. Let's keep in mind, dude, he signs with the New Orleans Saints because the Los Angeles Chargers really gave up on him. That's where he was drafted. He signs with the Saints right after Hurricane Katrina because the Miami Dolphins were not able to trust his physical. They didn't know if he was going to be able to stay healthy, and the Saints signed him, and he not only becomes one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, but he gives that city a Super Bowl. He gives them multi-division titles, and it's unfortunate because Sean Payton, right after that Super Bowl, that defense was not very good. They really did not help that team out, but over the last 4 years, the Saints have just had so many heartbreaking playoff losses, from the Minnesota Miracle to the game against the Rams where they got robbed by the Revs, and even last year against the Minnesota Vikings when they choked at home, and the fact that they lose a home playoff game for the third year in a row with this core group of guys. I remember telling you this before the season, my dude, that no matter how good you are, no matter how deep you are, no matter how well coached you are, it is so hard to have your team focused and locked in and ready to go all in for a Super Bowl title for 4 straight years. My motto in the NFL is your window to win a Super Bowl is never as long as you think, and ultimately I think that happened to the Saints.
Yeah, and thankfully they have a great, draft selections and stuff like that to help them.
Well, it's interesting, dude, because 2 quick points I want to mention.
Yeah.
Number 1, they're in salary cap hell. They're going to have to make some trades because they went all in for Drew Brees on his last year, and rightfully so. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He deserved everything he could to put this team in a spot to win a Super Bowl. And honestly, dude, I don't know if you agree, but I do think if they have a better quarterback, they easily could be in the NFC Championship game right now. I think 2-53, they're that good. But at the same time, my guy, I wanted to say this. When you look at the New Orleans Saints, I think that they're going to have to make some moves. They're going to have to maybe move on from some guys because they're in salary cap hell right now. They are way over the cap. And also, I think Jameis could be maybe the answer there. Maybe if you put him in his second year in the system under Sean Payton, under basically a year off. What do you think about that? What would your quarterback of the future plans be for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, well, I would say that, but at the same time, I'm a little, hesitant to say that because, they gave Taysom Hill a lot of money this offseason. And, I'm surprised because he was playing, he played starter over Winston for, a stretch. So, I wouldn't be surprised either direction they go. I just think that, it's tough because, Taysom Hill, I don't think can thrive as a quarterback on a consistent weekly basis. I think he has limitations. And I think Jameis Winston would be, a better fit. So I hope they would go in that direction. It's just, if Sean Payton, I think Sean Payton is, overrated as a coach, but he's really I'll say this, bro. He's a better coach than Bruce Arians. I'll give him that. Yeah, and I think he could maybe coach up, Jameis Winston to become a solid starter. And, worst comes to worst, you have a bad year next year, you draft a quarterback and start the clock again,
Yeah, definitely, man. But it's unfortunate for the Saints. I think this really was an end of an era. You saw after the game, Tom Brady and Drew Brees shaking hands. Tom Brady threw a touchdown to Drew Brees' son. I think that tells us all we need to know, dude. I know Drew Brees didn't officially retire, but most likely his last game, and he's had a phenomenal career. So,
yeah.
Shout out to Drew Brees. But, dude, let's go to the Buccaneers a little bit. How about that running game and that offensive line? I think that was one of the other main reasons why they won. We spoke about Hendrickson and Anzalone and how good those guys were. But how about my guy, Ryan Jensen, their center, really setting the tone. Marpet played very well on the left guard side, and Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette especially, he looked fresh, he looked ready to run the ball, and I think we forgot this guy's a former top 10 pick, and when you're a running back that's going top 10, you're pretty special. You have some talent, and maybe playing with Tom Brady, he finally is in the right direction and could be one of the main reasons why this Tampa Bay Buccaneers may be going to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, they have that. I mean, they gave Tom Brady a running game, which he really needed, and with all those weapons, I mean, you can put only one number one cornerback on one of those guys. So, I think Chris Godwin is going to be a big-time, guy because the attention's going to Evans and Antonio Brown. If he can make a lot of big plays, I mean, he made a few big plays last week and this week. And, I think one thing I talked about earlier in the season was that, the Bucs have a really solid offensive line. They drafted that kid Wirfs from Iowa.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
And they have a really solid. They have a great interior offensive line. So I think that thing is beneficial. But one more thing about the Bucs is they get I think Vita Vea back next week, and this guy's a game wrecker. He lines up right on the zero technique, and this dude just manhandles any center in the league. So if they can get him back, I think that run defense is gonna go up to par as their number one rated in the league. And, I think he's a big key for this Bucs team to win next week. So, I think it bolsters their defense and, gives them a really good shot to beat the Packers.
Andrew, one thing I will say, and we're going to get into this next in a couple days on Thursday, you'll be back on the show. But the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be playing in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, now it's going to be at Lambeau Field. And when I look at this whole situation, you see that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the Green Bay Packers in Week 5, and they dominated them. They blew them out. And I'm not saying that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to go into Lambeau and win, but one thing I will say is this, dude. I think Tampa Bay does two things that provides a unique matchup threat to Green Bay. Number one is the ability to run the ball. As you said, as good as Green Bay's defense has been playing, if Tampa Bay could run the ball like that against New Orleans, they should have no problem doing it against Green Bay because Mike Pettin, his one weakness as a defensive coordinator is against the run. And Green Bay, even though they shut down Derrick Henry, they've been better as of late. At the same time, I don't necessarily know if I trust them the way I saw Tampa Bay running the ball last week. Number two is they blitz the hell out of you. And I understand Green Bay's offensive line did a really good job against the Rams and that fierce defense, but Aaron Donald wasn't 100% healthy. And we saw that pass rush with Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and maybe with Vita Vea back. I think that aspect of the Buccaneers defense does provide a unique threat to Green Bay.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles, he's a very aggressive defensive coordinator. So they're going to take a lot of big shots, a lot of all-men out blitzes, zero coverage. And, I think that's something that, Aaron Rodgers has to prepare for. But I think it's going to be a disadvantage for the Packers because, their center, Corey Linsley, he's a top-rated center, but, the dude's a little more underweighted than Vita Vea. I think that's a big matchup, running the ball. The Packers are going to need to run the ball, and, if you have that number one rush defense, lock it up. I don't see why the Bucs can win this game, honestly. Plus, Tom Brady, he's a playoff guy. He plays, in the cold weather all the time in New England. So that's also another good matchup. And I think the Bucs are really primed to make a big splash.
Dude, I got to tell you, man, watching this game, I understand, once again, Tom Brady was not the main reason why Tampa Bay won this game, their defense, their running game, all that. But, man, this is one of the better moments of his career. For his first time in a Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniform, first time in the NFC without Bill Belichick, this guy is in the NFC Championship game with, let alone, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They haven't been in the playoffs since John Gruden was there in 2007 when they lost to the Giants that ended up winning the Super Bowl. It's been 12 years since the Buccaneers had even made the playoffs, and this dude wins 2 playoff games back-to-back weeks on the road. Only the GOAT, man.
Yeah, especially against Drew Brees, and, it's remarkable, dude, and, I think it really shows, how good Brady, he doesn't need that Belichick offense. Sure, he has a lot of playmakers, but he's still making a lot of great plays, and I think one more thing is underrated, that signing of Gronkowski at the beginning of the season. The dude's a starting tight end on the team, and
Him and Brady speak the same language.
They do, and that's so important in the postseason, so, I think that the Bucs are really... they're primed to win now, and they have a good future. I mean, Devin White as well. You know, he was
all over the place.
All over the place last Sunday, and I mean, he can lock up any running back in the cover. I mean, Alvin Kamara is not easy to cover, and he contained him pretty well.
Yep. Any other takeaways from this game, my dude?
No, not really, but just Bucs are rolling over right now.
Yeah, Tom Brady, man. Only him, man. Only him.
The GOAT.